Welcome to Door2Door Insider, where we take a deep dive into the mindset, the why, and the how of the industry's top entrepreneurs, leaders, recruiters, and salespeople. We are the Door2Door Nation. Here is your host, Lee Barber. Let's go.
All right, gang, welcome to Door2Door Insider. Today's special guest needs no special introduction, but I will do it anyway. We have Michael O'Donnell, also known as MOD. Mike is partner and vice president of sales and marketing at SunSolar Solutions. He is CEO and lead instructor of MOD Sales Academy. He has over 12 million watts of personal sales volume since 2015. He's a 10-time Door2DCON Golden Door winner, recognized as a top solar sales executive in the solar industry. He's a keynote speaker at numerous solar conferences and featured on many sales and solar podcasts, including mine. This, I think, will be our third time.
I think our third time sitting together.
Third time. Best-selling author of No Matter What, and the recipient of the recipe for a 7-figure income in sales. Mm-hmm. He is hard at work on his second book, Go Solar or Else, and has set over 20 appointments and sold over 65 kilowatts this week alone. Mike.
Hard at it. Let's go.
Bring the heat. Mike doesn't turn it down, man.
How cool is it that we've had these mile markers in our relationship and in our career in the solar industry of you and I kind of sitting down to have these conversations. It's a great memorial.
It is a great memorial. And it's been, I think the first podcast was on my original with Zach Ross, the Door Knocker podcast. Yeah. And then we shot one, and over the years we've gotten to know each other through various channels and seen each other and talk to each other. And it's just been really cool to see how consistent you've been in the solar industry. And what I've really noticed about you is that you're a really powerful influence, right? And so one of John C. Maxwell's my favorite quotes is, a leader with nobody following him is just a guy taking a walk. And you're a leader in the solar sales industry because you lead from the front, and you're such a great influence on so many of the folks in the sales industry and solar. So thanks for coming on the show, and it's been a great pathway to get here with you.
Thanks for having me, Lee. It's great to be here. My current goal, top one goal on the list, is to fit into that shirt the way you do. So
you can do it.
I'm working on that one right now.
I'll just be honest, man. Trizepatide.
I met John Maxwell backstage, got to hang out with him in a green room once, and I got a chance to spend some time with him, talk to him about some of my heartaches. And that would be, sometimes you feel like you're leading and you look back and is anybody behind me? And you're looking for that one that you thought was going to be the one that did it. And you look behind you and he's not there, you know, or maybe he's decided to go where the grass is greener, or what have you. There's just a million heartbreaks along the way as a leader because you invest hope in certain people. You hope that they're going to get it. And then when they don't, it's just so heartbreaking. But he said, Mike, two things. One, make it about them, not you, right? In terms of trying to pour into them, make that about them. And then whatever happens to them, you'll have, hopefully serve them in a great way. And then whether it's with you or not, hopefully they got something from that, make it about them. But he also said, Mike, in this world, and I would imagine in your industry, solar, there are blessed additions into your life. He said, but Mike, there's blessed subtractions. And be grateful for those as well.
Yeah, that's a really good point. What year did you get to meet John Maxwell?
Well, he and I were both speaking at RoofCon. I'm going to say that was probably 2019 or 2020.
Wow. Yeah. The blessed subtractions.
Yeah.
I think you're right with that. I mean, I think that I'm a big believer in the law of attraction, and I think that goes both ways, right? We draw on what we need and push away what we don't. So that's actually really good advice. I think that comes down to the Pareto principle, right? I think we all go through the same things as leaders. We're trying to pour into as many people as we can, but it's really that top 20% of individuals who can manage their emotions and their mind and the physicalities and mental aspects of doing the job. And I think what really a lot of people fail to realize is this career essentially boils down to each individual running their life as a business owner. And you have to have your personal life in order. You have to have your business life in order.
Yep.
You have to be able to, a lot of it just comes down to not doing what you feel like doing. you have to do what you're supposed to do. And
I start talking to people about that in the interview, right? So a couple times a week, I have a group interview. I have numerous feeds and funnels of folks that I'm interacting with to bring them into the solar industry or bring them into SunSolar Solutions. But one of them is I do a group interview twice a week, and that's the Indeed funnel, right? And I bring them, I'll have 15 at a time. And that's when I start talking to them about you're going to be paid, not like an employee, right? This is how you bring about the idea of straight commission. I remember having this conversation about trying to get salespeople that are in these other industries where they're getting salaries and benefits, and how do we get them over? And the idea being, oh, you fell for that salary thing. Oh, you fell for this this benefit thing.
The 401k,
especially as a salesperson, it's kind of a scam, right? Because they're the ones taking the risk on the front end. Because they're going to pay you a minimum amount, right? No matter what you do, they're going to pay you a minimum amount. So they're taking the risk. And because they take that risk, they're entitled to the lion's share of the margin off of your efforts, right? And to return that to the shareholders. What's been different about solar, that we're all independent contractors for the most part, 1099. And this is the conversation I'm having with them literally in the interview. You're actually the CEO of your own enterprise. Yeah. And it's on you, and it's incumbent on you to say, how do I grow this enterprise? But we're not going to pay you $5,000, $7,000, whatever that number is, because you're a great employee. If you're an employee, we would never pay you that much money. No. We'd pay you a salary, and then you'd get paid X amount per sale, and we would make a lot more money. The shareholders would get to keep the lion's share of that money. And that's really been a breakthrough in solar, is that the salespeople really have found themselves in a position where they get to keep the lion's share of the value that they create, and that's an amazing opportunity.
I agree. It's it's sweat equity. I did years ago. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Deshaun Bryant. He's known as the roof hustler out of the East Coast. He's a roof guy, and he does some. But I had this paradigm for a long time that what was stopping people from being successful in our industry was that they were set in a fixed mindset. Yeah. Right. They couldn't get over the 401k or the medical, and my thing is always like, would you rather make $50,000 a year with medical, or $200,000 a year and pay for your own medical? Right. Right. But so that was my paradigm for a long time. And what Deshaun, we went to dinner before we did a podcast, and he says, the thing is there's a step before that. A lot of what we're dealing with is people's mental and emotional maturity levels. And so sometimes we're getting people who don't really know how to manage themselves outside of a set setting, meaning that, you'll have people in their 30s and 40s that have clocked in every day, that have done those things where they're kind of regulated, right? They have this mentality of like, somebody needs to be watching. Right. And so part of our jobs in leadership and training, I think, is like teaching people to become that CEO. Like first giving the vision, like you're saying, and then, we have different people in all the offices across the nation. All of us as leaders know this. Sometimes we're just trying to teach a guy like to get to the meeting, on time. And then the other guy's, trying to just get him to knock all the hours and then believe in himself and get past the thing where they, there's this big thing, I think, when guys come into the industry, they think they need to be motivated. And motivation is so fleeting. What you need is discipline. You have to go do the thing, whether you feel like doing it or not. And then you start getting results. And then once you start getting results, you start feeling motivated.
Well, that's the other thing John Maxwell encouraged me to focus on. He said, Mike, stop finding people with potential and then motivating them. Find motivated people and then direct them to follow you and explain to them, what the benefits are of joining you. But look for those motivated people. And I've really given that a lot of thought. Like, how do I find people who are super motivated? And it has taken my eye to different areas. Like, I want to find someone who is president of their junior class, in high school. That's a motivated individual. I want to find someone who is captain of a soccer team or a football team. Somebody who was motivated to be at the top of a roster. And that's what I tell people as they're coming in at that interview level. And Forbes did a big study, said, what's the most lucrative jobs in America? And the most lucrative jobs in America, number one was like brain surgeon or something at $600,000-700,000. But you got to put 12 years into schooling. Who here wants to go to school for the next 12 years? So then no one raises their hand. I said, but the top 20% of this industry, or average income in the solar industry for successful sales, is $250,000, right? And it's not weird to have somebody making $500,000. Like, That's not even some planets lining up. It's not the unicorn discovery.
It's the guy who works hard and
He had good training,
knowledge.
and he works hard, and he shows up, and he does the job. However, what they have to get past is they feel like they're entitled to that min number, and they're not willing to let go of the min number to be able to have the max number. And that's the scam of the W-2 sales organization, because they're saying, we'll lock in that minimum number and provide those benefits, but we're going to take like the top 2/3 off the max of your deal and keep you kind of in golden handcuffs for the next 20 years while we make a ton of money. But the scam was, how long were they really at risk? They took the risk on you. How long were they at risk? If you're not producing in 6 months, are they going to keep you around? If you haven't hit that quota in a year, are they going to keep you around? If you do great for 3 years and miss the quota the 4th year, are they going to keep that salary in place? No. They're only going to keep providing that min number as long as you would have made a lot more money if you had been on the max number. But taking that risk on the front end, that's a big leap for a lot of people.
It is, and I always thought that's where that fixed mindset comes in. And I always envisioned it as, almost being in cement boots and just dumped into it. It's because you get so fixed, you grow up and they're like, get a job and then get a 401k and you got to have a retirement and all these things. Yeah. And you got to have medical insurance. And I've been doing self-pay for a long. The self-pay is so much cheaper than, right? But now instead of their 401k, I have homes that I own and investments, and it's like shoot for something bigger. So. I love all that. And one thing that I thought of when you said that there's a Navy SEAL quote, I don't want to butcher it, but the man who needs motivating is not worth motivating. Just meaning like, I think we're all looking for those common denominators in successful people, and it really comes down to just somebody who's willing to do hard
It's so
things.
easy to discover and spot people with potential, but how do you go about spotting people that are going to be motivated? They're going to actually come into it with a hunger to do what's needed to make, the big solar money.
Yeah, I love it. So, here we are in the middle of, what is today? The June 20th?
74 days.
Yeah, we're...
It's 74 days away from the mother of all deadlines.
Yeah, so here, let's, hit the elephant in the room because it's here. We've had a really interesting year a few years in solar. I think if we scope back, I think I tracked a lot of this all the way back to COVID, where you started with COVID and then you had the supply chain. I remember there was a point.
It did start with COVID, where it was just incoming, one thing after another after another.
We couldn't get, when I was back with Arcadia days, John Murphy and those guys.
Yeah,
who I ended up knowing.
Great guys.
So great. But I remember.
By the way, rest in peace. Not here. There's a lot of great guys not around.
Not around. Yeah. Arcadia's gone, along with so many others. But we couldn't get a 400 watt, a 400 amp Siemens ready main panel for 18 months after. There was just supply chain.
Yeah.
And then here comes the Fed.
How many different panels did you sell in 2020 and
just
2021?
Crazy.
Not only did we have the COVID supply chain issue, but we also had the tariff issue with the Asian countries.
Everything.
And all of a sudden there had container trips turning around, not coming to the U.S. and going to Australia instead. And we're not selling that panel. What panel are we selling next week?
You couldn't even update the design platforms fast enough with the panels changing out. And then here comes the Fed. And the Fed increases, and then here comes, and then years later we start to see a lot of the smaller regional EPCs going. We saw Empire go out, then we saw the big boys, the Empires, the Titans, and just across the board. And then, if you would have asked me
I refer to that, by the way, as the Titans of our industry,
the Titans of
going down.
Going down. That's a good way to put it. And then I just think if you would have, I know that if you would have said, Lee, in 2022, Sunnova's going to go bankrupt.
Unthinkable.
I would have been, no way.
Yeah.
And
unthinkable.
Then, here comes, and then Mosaic, and then, it's like,
unthinkable.
And then what's happening, for me, some of the changes that have occurred for me personally over the last year started with the financial crises. I was with Legacy, and I don't just see this as a legacy problem. Sunrun has self-financing, but you have groups like Pros, and some of these groups have taken really massive hits by the Sunnovas and the Mosaics.
Yeah.
And
some of them have caused massive hits to the Sunnovas and the Mosaics.
Specifically a Mosaic.
Yeah.
There was a really bad deal written on that. But you see these kind of big boxes where it's a big ship and it's really hard to move, and the damage that's incurred, it's like the Titans or the Titanics. When an iceberg hits you that big, it's really hard to maneuver out of it. And so I've personally seen the smaller regionalized installers have a bit more success because they're a lot more like a motorcycle on a freeway that's avoiding all of the crashing cars.
We're nimble.
They're nimble.
We see it coming. We can make an adjust. We can pivot.
The problems aren't so bad. So the banking. Yeah. And then what happens? Politics aside, I think what's happening right now with this administration is they're doing some of the things that they do. I think it's, in my opinion, what we do is we sell American energy. We sell American energy independence. We've had foreign countries come over, and we may not make all of the panels, but we build a lot of them here. Yeah. Between Hanwha and Enphase and some of these great, we're billions of dollars in American jobs and American salespeople and giving Americans energy independence. And politics aside, the new bills, it's scary as shit, right? So here we are in it. I'm interested to hear what you think of it. Senate has just come out with their first draft. I think everybody's I feel like we're on the 50. We're 7 points behind, and we're at 30 seconds.
And yet it's almost irrelevant, right? Because we're going to continue to take incoming sorties of boom, new change, boom, new adjustment, boom. And we're just, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You're just going to have to figure out, is this one going to kill you? Yeah. So we've had, and the incoming sorties started with COVID, right? Because COVID did screw up the supply chain. We spent $10 trillion trying to make an epidemic feel like a vacation. Everybody stay home and watch Netflix for how long or whatever, right? And we'll just give you money not to work, right? And so we spent $10 trillion and we doubled the national debt from 20 trillion to 30 trillion. It's since slipped up to 36 trillion, right? So, and that just meant there was an extra $10 trillion and the supply chain was crushed. What does that do to pricing? So inflation starts screaming out of control. How do you combat inflation? You combat that with interest rates. And so the real big hit to the solar industry, which has caused the current round of, casualties, big titans of our industry now gone, was the fact that as interest rates go up, the one thing that solar people were taught to do was to knock on a door and say, hey, you should go solar, Mr. Homeowner. Well, why would I do that? It's cheaper. You should go solar, it's cheaper. And then we're showing up with, instead of 1.99% financing, we're showing up with 6.99% financing at the same dealer fees, et cetera, and going, hey, it's cheaper. And then we show it to them and they go, it's not really cheaper. Yeah. And so sales literally dropped 50%. And so there's almost a Ponzi scheme, if you will, of needing to have, especially installers and the financing companies. That's what I actually call it, is a Ponzi scheme. They need incoming. They got to get deals today to pay the deals, to fund the deals that they paid commissions on a bunch of yesterdays ago. And so that what takes companies out of the pocket, which knocks them, mixed metaphors, knocks them out of the saddle is cash, right? If you didn't run into cash problems, no company would ever go out of business. What takes companies out of business is cash. And so, and being an EPC, being an installer is so cash intensive. And now what we're running to the incoming sorties, the incoming things on the other end is, now we've got the financing companies all of a sudden, not after we've taken all this, commissions and expenses and buying the panels and doing all that thing, all of a sudden now they're not paying us on time. And now they're not paying us on time, now they're not paying us at all. And now they're not paying us at all they're going bankrupt. All right, so that's a massive, massive hit to the cash flow, and it's hitting every sizable company that you can imagine. So this is I would say that's really the second round. The first round was caused by interest rates and huge, increases to the debt and, what we just talked about. But this round is now really having to do with that decrease in sales, causing cash problems, causing the finance companies and the EPCs all of a sudden to be not paying people. Now, how do you survive that? Lots of people have, and I think we've lost a massive number of our critical mass. But talking about the regional installer, SunSolar Solutions. By the way, I love your shirt there, Lee. I love to see us. We've been known each other so long, and now we're wearing matching shirts. I got to tell you, I'm pretty excited about working together and the work that we're going to do here now today and in the near future. But as we go through that, SunSolar Solutions, when Sunnova stopped paying us on time, we took that as a clue and pivoted 80-90% of our volume away. If we hadn't done that, I wouldn't be sitting here, right? And shout out to my partner Val Barraquette, who's he's just on top of the details, and to a point that sometimes it's, just overwhelming that we're, what are the details? What has to happen? What do we need to change? We need to make this adjustment, that change. And you're taking that. But all of those are to, make the end result be a healthy company that's delivering unbelievably well for the customer, who's referring more people through any of these conditions changing, right? So we pivoted away from Sunnova like the beginning of last summer when they started not paying on time. And then so by November, when they stopped paying at all, our volume had gone down to a trickle with them, and we have friends and peer companies that literally are owed, fives and tens of millions of dollars. How do you absorb a hit like that? And the answer is you can't, and still operate the way you used to, right? Yeah. There's going to be monstrous adjustments to be made to deal with that. So, I'm grateful that we did make that pivot. We're on top of that stuff every day. And we have a lot of pivots to come. So, your real question was the elephant in the room, which is, okay, we're dealing with this big, beautiful bill. We're dealing with Trump not being a Green New Deal guy. When you go through this 570-page bill, looking for the stuff that affects solar, you'll notice
Page 268, by the way.
Okay? And on 268, it says termination of the Green New Deal funding. Mm-hmm. The deal was never called the Green New Deal. It was the Inflation Reduction Act. And in the new bill, it's called termination of the Green New. So, we've already been through this, Lee, because the tax credit was gone already, right? It went from 30 to 26 to 22. We were selling it at 22.
I remember.
And it was going to 0. And honestly, that was one of the instigators of us becoming an installer at that time, because we thought as an adjustment, we were with Titan at the time, is there going to be enough room for Titan and SunSolar? We weren't disloyal to Titan. We just thought we needed to look at this future and make an adjustment because we thought the tax credit was going away. We saw this compression happening, and that's what we're going to have to deal with. So you hear Trump talk about, we're going to put this 30% tariff on a country, and the detractors say, well, that's just going to increase prices to the consumer 30%. And then the experts kind of disagree in the middle, and what their argument is both ways, yes, the price is going to go up to the consumer, but it ain't going up 30%. Right? Because the customer's not going to pay 30% more. They're just not. And they're not going to quit making the solar panels on the other end, right? So what's going to happen is there's going to have to be a compression, right? Mm-hmm. So the customer's going to have a much lower, so let's just say it's today, right? Let's just say the tax credit's gone today. The customer's going to have a much lower gross price.
Agreed.
But they're going to have a slightly higher net price. And so, yes, you would say the customer is paying more, right? But that means we're going to have to lose 50, 60, 70, 80 cents out of a stack. Where is that going to come from? Mm-hmm. Well, just like in the tariff conversation about countries, it's going to come from the manufacturer. It's going to come from the shipping companies. It's going to come from the distributors. It's going to come from the local distributors, and then the sales company, and then the salesmen. They're all going to have to take a compression. Mm-hmm. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. All of this is irrelevant to whether or not solar accelerates in proliferation. It's going to accelerate in proliferation because not even an army can stop an idea whose time has come, and solar has massive momentum, massive deployment. And that's because it's a better strategy than digging dead stuff out of the ground and lighting it on fire. It's a way, way, way better strategy, and it costs less. It just costs less. So at the end of the day, when we show someone a solar proposal, let's just say they're buying a 10 kilowatt solar system for $3 a watt, and so it's $30,000. Mm-hmm. They have to put $30,000 down, boom. In this current situation, they're getting 9 of that back. That really is a massive adjustment. Helps. Do I want that to go away? No, right? Was it almost gone 5 years ago? It was almost gone 5 years ago. Would I be selling solar if it was gone 5 years ago? Yeah, we would have figured that out. At the end of the day, with the tax credit, if you say that $30,000 over 25 years worth of kilowatt hours that you paid for, if you were to amortize that out and say, well, what did I pay for the kilowatts? 25 years of production divided by the cash price, the net cash price is about 5 cents per kilowatt hour. Well, the reason solar's successful is because we're selling 5-cent power against 20-cent power. That's why it's successful. Without the tax credit, that 5-cent power becomes 7.5-cent power. Is that going to kill that deal? Is that going to even slow it down? None of that is relevant because we're not competing against the price. We're not competing against each other. What we're competing against is the price of the alternative. We're competing against the price of the alternative, which is fossil fuels. And in every single market in the United States, the price of fossil fuels has a trajectory that looks like this. Why is that? Whole bunch of reasons. Is it going to stop? No way it stops. The price of fossil fuel electric generation has been doubling every 15 years for 60 years. Is that going to stop? No. We're already probably a third of the way through a doubling in just the last 3 years. So that doubling completes itself in what period of time? I don't have a crystal ball, but I could guess. It's not going to be 15 years this time. That wipes out all of the lost money that was in the deal due to the tax credits. So there's going to be adjustments, but I'm going to tell you, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And I'm just going to make a prediction that I know I'm 100% right on. We're going to sell a ton more solar after January 1st than we ever have before. And we're going to figure that out. You and I are going to figure that out. If it's 7 cents for raw power, for the raw cost of the equipment, all we got to do is figure out the financing. Why do you think we sell 25-year solar loans? You think 25 years is a good idea? No, the reason we sell 25-year financing is because we're trying to make the numbers make sense. We've adjusted over time. We used to sell 20-year financing. Why did we go to 25? Well, because interest rates and different things, we had to get those numbers down. I think, honestly, Lee, we may want to go in the other direction. So the idea that somebody knocks on a door and says, you should go solar. Why? Oh, it's cheaper. What? This is not a savings plan. This is not a savings strategy. This is a wealth building strategy. And if you implement the wealth building strategy, you should be trying to acquire that equipment as inexpensively as possible. And so as the tax credits go away and the gross price of the equipment comes way down, if the customer jumps on that opportunity, acquires that equipment, uses the money they were just going to light on fire, giving to the monopoly utility company, and instead acquires that equipment and says, why would I pay for that over 25 years? Maybe I need to knock this thing out over 10 years. My favorite place to sell solar right now, I'm not selling it there, but a lot of the guys in the MOD Sales Academy are selling solar in Canada. So shout out to Firefly, shout out to Caleb Mann, shout out to all those guys up there doing that. They don't have a tax credit up there.
Let's go Canada.
What they have is a 10-year loan, right, with interest free. That's pretty powerful. That's an incentive, which is also looks like going away. So everybody's dealing with the same thing. But if you amortize this thing over 10 years, you're not selling something that's cheaper. You're selling something that has a somewhat higher cost, but a way, way smaller investment over time, and provides the certainty that we love to talk about with solar energy. So I think this, this is a great opportunity for great minds to come together in a mastermind, which is what I do every day on the MOD Sales Academy. I'm in a mastermind every single day of great minds, great salespeople. SunSolar Solutions, we're constantly, kind of strategy, whiteboarding this. What are we going to do? I'm confident in our ability to figure that out. I'm much, 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 much more focused on what do we do between now and then. That's the exciting part.
That will be exciting. I love all that. It's there is a lot of hope. I think a lot of us in the solar industry are very scrappy. We're fighters. We adjust and we pivot. We do what we need to do. I think one of the things that I think that you adapt to the best is from all of the talks and trainings I've seen you do. It's rare that I hear you ever say like, "Hey, we're out here saving people money." It's more of there's an existential crisis, and what it is, I think people fail. Listen, when Elon built Grok, and he built it in record time, that data center, the amount of electricity that these data centers, and I think the majority of people are unaware of a lot of what's happening, and the way that AI is going to affect everything from the job market on many different levels, all the way down to electricity usage.
Yes.
And as demand, listen, this is what people should understand is supply and demand.
And that's what we should be talking about, supply and demand. We're doing a boot camp today with your team. I'm so excited. We're going to spend most of the time talking about that. People looked at me sideways when I got onto the stage at SolarCon 2024.
I love that, by the way. I ate that up.
And there's Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson talking about, somebody just told him, hey, did you know AI takes as much power as whole countries?
Yeah.
Did you know AI is going to like I just talked to Elon and says, AI is going to make us need twice as much power as we have.
Yeah.
We have a problem. And everyone going, what are we talking about AI when we're talking about solar? And we're talking about supply and demand. So Donald Trump takes office, and 2 days later, he gets in front of the President of the United States seal podium, not his little hanging out at the presidential desk thing, like stands up and delivers a message of a national emergency. The United States, as of today, I am declaring the United States to be in the midst of a national emergency. Now, he's signing something every day on TV, and he's hundreds of stuff. Well, those are all executive orders, and they can come and go. He signed 2 national emergency. One's about the border, and it seems like focusing the full force and might of the United States resources on a problem seems to have an effect, right? So, I mean, we've seen an effect at the border. But the other national emergency, and there's only 2, the other one was the United States has half of the electricity that we need to do what we do today and not lose the AI race. So the space race of the 60s, Kennedy said in 1960, we got to put a man on the moon or else. Gun to the head. Yeah. Put a man on the moon. And no one really understood, like, we want to go to the moon. Yeah, it's not about wanting to go to the moon. It's about having an intercontinental ballistic missile first. Yeah. Otherwise, Russia would have had them first. They would have pointed them at us, and we're like, we didn't really want to go to the moon. Yeah. And they'd have pointed those missiles at us, and today we'd be speaking Russian. Yeah. We wouldn't be the superpower, the unipower of the last 25, 30 years. Yeah. Well, that's the position we're in now. China's making massive investments into AI infrastructure, being a leader in the world, and into electricity. And they got no problem building big coal plants, right? So now, so President Trump, 2 days into his administration, sets the tone and says, we're in the midst of a national emergency. If we don't keep up with energy production, we are going to lose this race, and that would be tantamount to losing the space race. If we lose the AI race, we won't be that superpower. So the stakes couldn't be any higher. They're as high as they possibly can. That's good. And basically, he's announcing we have a supply and demand problem. We have a supply. And then where does that come from? It comes from AI. AI and EVs, I would say. People, and I like to talk to people about EVs because they see a new Tesla in the neighborhood every week. Yeah. Well, they're now not getting their energy at the corner gas station. They're getting their energy in the garage. And where's that come from? Was the grid built for that? Can we even charge up everybody's car if everybody has an electric car? Does the wire carry that much power? Do we have that much power? How do we get 100 million cars off the gas pump and onto the plugged in into?
We need more power.
We need a lot more power and no way to generate it. And so the recommendation is you need to have your own supply. Yeah. You need to have your own power plant. And by the way, you're going to need your own storage. You're going to need a battery. The reason you're going to need a battery, there's 2 big consequences to supply and demand, massive disruptions in supply and demand. One of them is availability. And so one of the things Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan were talking about in that podcast from a year and a quarter ago was the fact that, that California's been in this mess for a long time. Why? Because they built all the meta data centers, all the Google data centers, all the everything data centers were in California. Real estate's too expensive. They don't have the power, so they can't build them there. Where are they building them? They're building them in Nevada. We're going to talk about the fact that there's unbelievable stack of data centers coming to Nevada. Everybody's building them. Google's building them. Meta's building them. All these companies are going to be building these AI data centers. And where are they going to put them? On the floor of the desert. They're going to put them in Arizona. They're going to put them in Texas. They're going to put them right here in Nevada. And those data centers are going to take more power than we currently have. And that's going to cause not just a supply and demand, that's a big supply and demand problem, but the first thing that's going to go is availability. We just don't have enough power available. And that's what causes brownouts. And that's not mythological. California's been dealing with that for years.
Well, I mean, I think not everybody's sold in California. I have. A lot of people on the show probably live or have been to California, but
a lot of people would love to be selling against 60-cent power, though, wouldn't they?
It's unbelievable. I mean, you go in Nevada right now, we're competing at about 15. NV Energy is selling at about 15 cents with all their adders. Yep. In California, you're marinating on an average right around 48 cents, and if this is we're I just turned 50. We lived through the 70s and 80s, right? And
Happy birthday, by the way.
Thank you. But it's like, you have these young kids and they're like really, young 20, like socialism's awesome and communism.
Universal basic income.
No, it's not. It's been tested. We see these things.
Yeah, it doesn't work out too well.
There's a test on that, and it's called this part of history.
Right.
And if you want to test out what does supply and demand look like in an energy market, I mean, you just have to turn your head west and look at California. You have exactly everything that you're talking about, this Silicon Valley and all of the data centers and all of the mega data centers with Meta and Google and all these things. And then supply and demand, and then you have aged, power supply lines that are catching things on, and all of these issues with electricity and not having enough of it and not having up-to-date facilities. And then you look, what is the price of power in California? On average with PG&E, it's at 48 cents.
And why is it so much higher?
Right.
It's so much higher because of a supply and demand issue, and the supply problem, the demand issue is coming from data centers, or a huge percentage of that is coming from data centers, and they're a much higher percentage of electric cars. The EVs, they're just ahead of us. We're all going to catch up. We're going to have 48-cent power. We're all going to be paying $1 per kilowatt for fossil fuel power in some amount of time. We just don't know. It's been doubling about every 15 years when the only impact was inflation. Well, inflation is not the only impact. When I started selling solar with SunSolar Solutions in 2015, I had to do a training class, a little lecture to the customer on inflation. I would have to prove to them that inflation was doubling the price of stuff about every 15 years, including the price of power. And they go, yeah, what'd you pay for a movie ticket back when your kids were in grammar school? Yeah, it was $3.50. What are you paying now? Well, we're paying 10. Okay, that's a tripling. In about 15 years, the price of it tripled. The price of electricity doubles every 15 years if nothing is going on.
But there's a new equation.
The equation has a lot more variables in it, and we didn't have a supply and demand problem. We just had a grid that kind of did what we needed it to do, But that grid was built 100 years ago, right? And that grid has massive deficiencies, and electricity generation hasn't stayed up with. And we just woke up to that. Trump woke up to that and said, "Whoa, yeah, we need these AI," and he's going around getting $500 billion from these guys and $500 billion from these guys to put into AI. But the $500 billion guys are going, okay, but where's the electricity coming from? They're going, oh, we got a problem. We got a huge, huge problem. We have half. And that's the word track. And it's true. And that's right out of President Trump's mouth. We have half the electricity that we need in order to sustain our position on the planet as the global superpower.
Which is a little bit what surprises me about the current status of the bill. I understand the savings and the political aspects of it. But the numbers, the math of the thing doesn't lie. And
no, Elon is right.
100%.
Trump is wrong.
100%.
I wish Elon would have stayed in the tent and it outward instead of got out of the tent and is whatting inward. I wish he would have stayed in there and been talking into Trump's ear. But the reality is it's just politics, and they want their money. They want the money to put on tax cuts. And there's $500 billion sitting in a pot, and they can't keep the tax cuts that they want unless they take the money out of that pot.
Yeah.
So it kind of is what it is. Trump's also, pushing more traditional fossil fuels, drill baby drill, and that's just, we elected the guy who's drill baby drill. We did not elect the guy that says get to zero emissions. And that's just, elections have consequences. We're dealing with those consequences. But again, bring it back to the big picture. There's no chance the price of electricity doesn't double again. It's just going to do that. Is it going to take 15 years? I don't think so. I think it's going to happen in half of that time, let's say. It's on a march. And not only that, are we going to be in situations where people just, I had a wonderful experience. Last November, Val and I took 10 of our employees to the Philippines. And we arrived at this tiny little island called Gibit Nil. I learned how to say it. Gibit Nil, which is just a little dot on the map off of one of the big Philippine islands, right? The big island of Cebu. There's two big islands in the Philippines. One is Manila, the other is Cebu. And then there's 6,000 little dots of islands in the Philippines. And most of them have no power generation. They have no power except for little tiny generators that in this little community that we arrived in turn them on at 6 o'clock at night, and they run the generators for 2 hours while they cook and charge up all the cell phones. That's literally, and whatever batteries they have to run a fan. And they're at 90 degrees, 90% humidity, and no air conditioning, no fans. We arrive on this island, and you're talking to a guy who's knocked on 1 million doors to having 9.9 million of them say, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I'm at your door with free electricity Solar electricity is stone cold free. If you look at the internet, you'll think solar equipment is free. It's not free. Solar equipment costs money, but the electricity generated is stone cold free. And I'm at your door and you're telling me, yeah, we're not interested in free energy.
Yeah.
Okay, that doesn't make any sense. It was an event of a lifetime to arrive. Our little delegation we weren't on a rowboat, but we were on this little
Close
boat
enough.
to take us across the thing to the channel. And we arrive at a ticker tape parade. Have you ever seen footage of the Queen of England arriving at some little New Guinea, someplace, and the whole town's out and a marching band is out and people are dancing and fireworks are going off? They're going, the solar people are here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, what would I do to knock on a door in the United States? Well, what's the difference? The people in the United States, they just take for granted that every light switch they flip is going to bring a light on. Every room they walk into is going to be their ideal, perfect human temperature. And here I'm on an island with 6,000 inhabitants, and there are no light switches that have power to them other than those 2 hours a day where they're running the generator. No room they've ever walked into in their whole life is the temperature that we like to be at. They sleep in hammocks like this because it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity, and there's no electricity to run a fan, let alone an AC. So it's a completely different mindset. It took me days and days to understand that mindset. And then when we were there to build a solar system on a school. And that solar system powers that school for the school day so that they have lights, they have fans, not AC, but fans, and they have a 42-inch screen hooked up to the internet. We supplied the solar, somebody else supplied the internet and the screens. We installed the screen, we installed the power, and we literally took this school out of the stone age into the modern era. What does Grok have to say about this?
Yeah.
In a moment, we did that, and these people expressed an amount of gratitude I'd never experienced in my whole life. And it just never ebbed. And then when we flipped the switch and the whole school came alive at night, we lit the school up at night because it included batteries, right? The jubilation, it's just I wasn't prepared for it. And then to come back home and have people, we're not interested in free
Don't want a
energy.
power plant. I don't want a power
Like, hey
plant.
guys, what are you taking for granted here? You're just going to have any amount of power and it's kind of affordable. Yeah, it's not going to be affordable because of the supply and demand thing. We're going to go from 20 cents to 40, 40 to 80. We'll be sitting there at $1 per kilowatt. One of my favorite little exercises to do with, homeowners or new salespeople is, well, get your calculator out. How many kilowatt hours are we using at this house? 20,000 kilowatt hours. Okay. And you're paying 0.2 cents or $4,000 a year. You go, okay, yeah. I don't like paying that, but I can afford it. Okay, get your calculator. Put us in 20,000 times 1.0. And what does that equal? 20,000. Yeah. That's how much it costs to power a house that uses 20,000 kilowatt hours off of fossil fuels at some pretty near point in the future. I don't know what date that arrives at, but we arrive at that date. Just like when we were paying 80 cents for gasoline, and was like, could we ever arrive at a date we're paying $3, $4, $5? Well, now we just take that for, okay, and we factor that in and bake it into the cake. That will be the case with electricity as well.
I think the problem, so I through training, right, I try and, what I try and do with a lot of my sales trainings with my groups is get people to the core thing. And I think if I start with the customer's paradigm first, right, Covey says the way in which you see affects the way in which you do, affects the way in which you get. I think that mentally, most people are not checked into the reality or the possibility of controlling the price of a commodity. And so what I try and get a lot of my gang around is like, well, how do you control the price of coffee? You got to plant a coffee tree.
Yeah.
How do you control the price of water? Well, you got to dig a well.
Yep.
How do you control the price of power? You
Yep.
have to own the production mechanism.
Right.
You're not going to own a dam.
Right.
You're probably not
I
going to
love
put a
that.
windmill
How do you
up there.
own,
How do you, right?
yeah.
And so this is
own
like,
own the production.
this is like, well, what if I put an oil derrick in your backyard and a refinery on the side and a
Right.
gas pump
Right.
over here?
Right.
But people conceptually don't understand that a photovoltaic solar, it's a power plant.
Right.
And it's a way to bypass, right? And
That's
so
right.
then I tell my gang, I'll tell customers this. I'm like, you remember Blockbuster? And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, Netflix came, right? That's market disruption. What solar is it's market disruption into
Yep.
the traditional way that energy is bought and sold. And I'll
Yep.
ask people in Nevada, I'm like, does Nevada Energy make electricity? And they'll go, I don't know. And I'll be like, No, they don't. Where do you think it comes from? They're like, I don't know. Well, it comes from power plants, and most power plants are private. And why do you think people build private power plants? And they're like, to make electricity. And I'm like, what do they do with the electricity when they make it?
Right.
They sell it wholesale to places like Nevada Energy. And what do? They mark it up and they sell it retail to you. What we're able to do, and you just got to, we're able to put the power plant on your roof. And sell you the electricity.
Give you the means of production for all you socialists out there.
Cut out, we're going to
now the proletariat can have the means of production.
Like wow, look
of
at
electricity.
That. But conceptually, I think the majority of the customer base, either through bad experiences or just literally conceptually, don't understand that point. And then from a sales aspect, people are they're it's trying this savings thing. It is an existential crisis. There is going to be a doubling. The missing math equation is AI. It is, and it is not 15 years. It's five to seven. The prices are going to go up, and then being able to control the mechanism that produces that electricity and have a contractor ownership of that that says price is going to be here, I think is a lot of the missing element in what we see in solar. So I agree with everything.
And I wish I wish there was somebody in the inner circle that could get the current administration to go, whoa, this is strategic. We need homeowners to continue to acquire this means of production, continue to incentivize it. At the end of the day, if they did continue to incentivize it, we would accelerate at one rate. Without them subsidizing it, we'll continue to accelerate. It'll be at a different rate. We'll make that adjustment. There's no doubt in my mind, what do we got, like 3 to 5 million homes nationwide that are solar? There's no doubt in my mind that there's 30 million homes that are solar in, say, 7 years, by a little bit after the turn of this decade. And so we're going to have to, we're going to have to work together to figure out, it's just a financing mechanism at that point, right? So, which doesn't bode well for all the financing companies that are struggling to get through this period themselves.
Another thing we've seen is Infin comes out with this, national 48-hour pullout. Like, and it's insane. I talked to Val.
Well, and they pulled out of Arizona, I think, and Florida entirely.
Just with 48 hours. And so, I think that I think that you're right in the compression. I think one of the compressions that we'll see will be in the finances. I think another compression will be in how, I think it's, not anything bad against banks, but I just really disagree with dealer fees. I think that it's time for dealer fees to get compressed. But what I think will happen here is that between the banks that have survived and made better choices, they'll have to, compress some of the dealer fees and some of those different things. And, what we've also started to see is, I think it was Blackstone that pulled out a lot of their funding buckets for the PPAs. So I think there's a lot of adjustments that are going to come up. And I think the people who make it are the people that have been, so listen, we're going to good solar, right? I remember when we started talking, and I was talking to Chase, and he's like, listen, a lot of guys end up not wanting to work with SunSolar because they don't sell good solar. We only sell good solar. And I says, well, I align with that because that's all I do is I sell good solar. Traditionally, my offices have had a 80% sale to installation ratio. We tell the truth. We do good proposals. The point being is I feel secure in my ability to mitigate the damage that will come in various forms from the upcoming changes because we sell good solar.
Right, that's going to be the key.
I think what compresses is the guys out there that don't sell good solar, that are they have to, they're trying to.
Half of those guys are gone because they needed solar to be quite a bit cheaper to even sell it because they had no understanding of selling the value. We've been talking about the true intrinsic value of owning a power plant that needs no fuel. So if you buy a propane fuel generator,
sound badass.
It is badass.
Who doesn't want that?
Dude, I got a propane generator
crazy.
here for you. It costs X thousands of dollars. It's big enough to supply your own home, and here's the monthly payment on the equipment. Well, what's it cost to keep it supplied with propane for the next 30 years?
Right.
10 times that?
Yeah.
Okay, I got a generator here. It costs about the same as the propane generator, but it comes with a 30-year supply of free fuel. Like, what?
I get pumped up with my homeowners. I'm like, I'm going to put a power plant on your roof.
What?
Like,
but the problem is, and one of the experiences I had that was pretty profound here recently, I did a keynote talk at the SolarCon 2025, right? And it was a much different talk than the one I gave in 2024.
I loved it because you hit some nails on the head. I mean, anybody that hasn't seen it, go watch it. It's really good. But
yeah, it's on YouTube. The whole thing's on there. The last 25 minutes I wrote the night before after hearing an individual who had sort of paid for the stage that day.
Thou who shall not be named.
Yeah, we don't need to name him.
What do they
Anyway, he
call him in
paid for
Harry
the
Potter?
stage.
It was Valdemir.
He had
evil
a
wizard.
message, and the message was salespeople are the problem. Salespeople making great money is the problem. And if you guys weren't so greedy, solar wouldn't be being attacked in the government and politics and the bill and all that stuff. And I got so angry listening to that message that I stayed up till 2:00 in the morning and rewrote my entire keynote address to talk about that, which is answered in the context of his own speech, was that the other models, we would not have you solar salespeople around if we could figure out something else. And believe me, we've been trying to figure out something else, he says. We've tried retail. But it costs more. Okay, we've tried, and he didn't talk about this, but I know they used to have their infomercials on TV. I used to watch those infomercials and go, is this working? and it didn't work, right? It cost more. The cost of acquisition was higher. Direct marketing, direct to consumer, all of that stuff. Guess what? Those models cost more. And so is it the person who's going out and knocking on the door, not just selling a product, but needing to educate. Mr. Wonderful, Mr. Wonderful, the shark, right?
Love him.
Love him as well, right? So he comes on and he's subjected to like 3 questions in a row about, don't you think the guy who just talked that said salespeople are the problem, don't you agree with him that greedy salespeople are the problem? And, they kind of go, I don't know your industry. I don't know if greedy salespeople are the problem. And then another question, don't you think if these salespeople didn't make as much money, solar would be probably in better shape or something? Anyway, 3 questions in a row coming from the same source, that same message just came from, one after another. And then finally, Kevin O'Leary, am I saying that name right?
Yep,
yeah, Mr. Wonderful. Kevin O'Leary says, dude, bro, I have solar. And you know what? I didn't call you. You knocked on my door. And I said,
what a great knock.
I know, what a great knock. You knocked on my door, and I said, not right now. And I don't know what that guy said, but he convinced me I should at least take a look. So I took a look, and I look at the numbers, and I go, who doesn't do this when they know the numbers? I look at numbers all day, and if the numbers don't make sense, poof. If the numbers make sense, I implement it. I look at the numbers for solar, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Who doesn't, is this a moron test?
Yeah.
But I didn't know that. I wouldn't have looked at it. I wouldn't have called you. I wouldn't have found that out. And by the way, I wanted to think about it for a while. Somehow that guy put a pen in my hand and got me to sign the thing, and now it's installed and working. Yeah. So he not only projected his ass onto my doorstep, he interrupted what I already thought. He got me to agree to be educated, and then he was the one who educated me. He made a case that was so compelling, I couldn't believe it. And then when I wanted to think about it, somehow he got me to get the ball rolling. Now I got the thing instead of thinking about it. The thing's there working. I'm thrilled with it. It's one of the, it's just, I want to get that clip of him talking about that. It's a great entrepreneurial, acquiring the means of production using other people's money that's going to produce a product I already had to pay for anyway at a lower cost. And over the course of 10, 20, 30 years, I'm going to generate massive amounts of equity and appreciation. This is a moron test. Who wouldn't do this? But I wouldn't have it. If you were waiting for me to call you, I would still not have called you. That guy projected him into my face, signed me up. I now have the benefits of this thing. And I'll tell you what, I don't know what that son of a bitch got paid, but I'll tell you one thing, it wasn't too much. I don't know what your model is, but that sale wouldn't have existed without that guy. So I don't understand this idea that you're saying salespeople are the problem.
So let's go to the real problem. In solar, a lot of the real problem. A lot of the real problem happens after the point of sale. And listen, I don't think either one of us are going to sit here. Are there bad actors?
The real problem, yeah.
Are there bad actors out there in the solar sales
The real
world?
problem are companies with 1.9 stars of customer satisfaction. That's the problem.
The real problem is, having a sale and then getting an install and then waiting 6, 7, 8, 9 months for a PTO. Yeah. That's the real problem. The problem comes
and then
from,
the thing doesn't do what they were told it would do.
Right, because nobody checked it.
I was told it was going to wipe out my entire bill, and I'm still paying $600, $700, $800 a year to the electric company. What's going on here? Yeah. We don't know what that guy said in the house. We don't know. There's a whole thing going on online right now with 87-year-old ladies who were told the panels were free.
Can we just give that guy a little plug? The real $1 million doorman is
like
on fire.
I'm like, is it true? Could it possibly be true that salespeople could get away with telling 87-year-old ladies the panels are free? Because by the way, the rest of the broadcast of that news is, well, she used to pay $300 a month for electricity, and now she's paying $300, a little bit less for solar. Like, I'm going, what's the problem here? Like, if the lady had been told the right stuff, she'd be going, this thing's awesome. It's doing exactly what they said it would do. The problem isn't people paying too much for solar. The problem isn't CEOs of their own little solar sales company. Each of us is that's what we started talking about. We're all the CEO of our own solar sales enterprise. It's not that money has too big of a top line or a bottom line. The customer sees the price. The price is on the goddamn front page. Like, the price isn't the problem. What's the problem? Here's the problem. You said, what's the real problem? The customer isn't getting what they paid for. It's not how much they paid. It's that they paid it, and then the thing didn't do what they were told, or the damn thing didn't work, or it wasn't put in right, or it took 10 times as long as it should have. This customer ends up being a 1.9 star experience when they spent 5-star money. And if you spend 5-star money, you should get a 5-star experience. That's what SunSolar Solutions is about. That's why we're working together. And if we can make that happen over and over again at a fair price, at a price that's lower than what they're paying now. Like, what are you kidding me? Like, when we sell solar, guys, and we may have to do this in the future, it's like, oh, you're paying $250 a month for solar? Hey, guess what? Let me show you this value proposition, and it only costs $100 a month more. But you're going to be out of it and at zero cost in 10 years, or whatever that proposition ends up being. If we can demonstrate that, it'll be like selling somebody a home. Does anybody ever buy a home because it costs less than renting?
No.
Is that one of the benefits of being a homeowner? Yes, it is. Over 30 years.
Over 30 years.
Yeah, but you're not going to be paying $2,500 a month and be able to buy the whole thing for $1,800. That's not going to happen.
It's a value proposition.
No, you're going to be paying $2,500 for rent. And you're going to own it for $3,000. But in 25 years from now, it would have been $6,000 a month, and you're still sitting there paying $3,000, and you're going to be a genius. You ever met anybody that has a mortgage that's 25 years old? They've been in the house for 25 years. Like, what's your mortgage? And they go, $672. And you're like, dude, that's not a mortgage. There's no mortgages that are $600. Well, that's what it was back in 1992 or whatever. And they're like, yeah, and not only that, we only got a couple more years left, and it's paid off. I think we could just write a check and make it go away. That's the concept. That's the value. That's the wealth building. Most of the wealth in this whole country is from people spending their housing budget on ownership instead of rental. And all we're going to do is explain to somebody the exact same thing as a power plant. If you don't rent this thing, but take the money you had to spend renting the damn thing and just buy the son of a thing, outright, you're going to end up with massive additions to your wealth. This isn't a saving strategy. It's a wealth building strategy. And as sooner we can get that into our heads and help people understand that and start selling that, it's do you know what $50 a month is to a homeowner? I just sold a 22 kilowatt solar system on Wednesday to a homeowner. And the roof didn't produce as good as it could have, and there's some other issues. One of them was his equalizer bill. It just had him, he's thinking he's paying like $410 a month. I think he's paying $489 based on his true costs and stuff. He just hasn't caught up to it. But anyway, the whole solar proposition looks like $100 a month. He's like, Mike, this thing's $100 more than I'm paying now. I'm like, dude, you told me you have a plane. Yeah, I have a plane. I'm looking at the cars and the Harleys and the stuff out there. Just on a big picture basis, Carlos, on a 1 month basis, where does $100 a month fit into the amount of time you would spend thinking about something that cost $100 a month? And he said, well, it's not even a rounding error. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You probably hand out $100 bills when you're walking out of the steakhouse, right? You tip the guy $100. Yeah. So, I mean, you're going to tell me you're not going to deploy this wealth building strategy because it's $100 a month more than whatever you're doing now? We're so caught up as solar salesmen. We're the ones who created the idea that this thing needed to cost $60, $70, $80 a month less. We came up with that. The solar didn't ask us, the customer didn't ask us to show up with a proposal that was somehow cheaper. What the hell?
Well, and it's paradigm, right? It's the way in which you view a thing. Like, I always go back to Covey on this because, the lens in which we see life in general, in relationships or business or solar or anything, depends on the way in which we interact with it, and I think, what I focus on with all my homeowners and my reps is this is a power plant. Like, get, where are you at? Like, get into reality. Like, literally, because you would click into reality if I said, how much is your water bill? And you said, it's, $200. And I said, I can dig a well, because they understand a well.
Yeah.
Or if I said, hey, you know what? We did some site surveys.
Dig a well, and now it's going to cost you $220 a month to pay off the well in 10 years.
And then you don't have any water bill.
That's good.
What if I could, so it's like conceptually understanding it's a power plant.
Yeah.
And the power plants make electricity, and you can control the commodity.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right. In the next years coming up, I think that people will have to refocus in on this. And I think the easy thing will be for the majority. And to kind of go back to your point too, though, on training, I think you can train people who are doing solar right fairly easily because they understand value.
It's a little painful, though. You'd have to agree with that, right?
No,
when you've been
is.
Loosey-goosey with the facts and loosey-goosey with
Some
kind
of
of
those,
telling
I don't know
people
if
stuff
they
they want to
can.
hear, and
Yeah.
like, oh, there's 5 things you got to tell people that they don't want to hear in a solar presentation. Did you cover those 5 things? I did it. And did the sale go through? Yeah. What if I was a sales guy I don't know how this happened to me, and but 10 years ago I started selling solar, and it happened to be with Val. and I didn't understand that I was having a different experience than the rest of the industry. I just knew that I had to get the customer to initial that they had to apply the tax credit, or else. I had to get them to initial that they knew there was a remaining bill and approximately what it would be, or else. I had to get them to initial all the things that I, as a sales guy, wouldn't have wanted to tell the customer. And you know what? I'm a person of integrity. I'm a person of honesty. You and I, we talk about practicing rigorous honesty. I didn't know rigorous honesty till I met Val. Because as a sales guy, I had a lower bar for rigorous honesty. But I consider myself to be a person of integrity and rigorous honesty. But I'll tell you what, when I'm a sales guy and I'm in the zone and I'm going for it, and I got to bring this baby home and get across the finish line, I need guardrails up. I'm just tell you, I do. I need guardrails up. And so I've had these guardrails up for 10 years, and I haven't had one customer in 10 years. And we're talking about thousands. I have thousands. I've sold almost 14 million watts of solar. I have thousands of people with my cell phone number. And I haven't had one person call me up and go, you son of a bitch. You told me if I went solar and I did this and I paid $189 a month, then I would get to do this or keep this or not have this or not have that, that I wouldn't have electric, whatever. Not in one time in 10 years have I had one person call me, and they all have my personal cell phone number. I think the strategy for most solar companies is to have sales reps that have to change their cell phone number every 6 months. And if that's been your strategy in the past, you need to come home. And the one thing that, like I was talking about from the stage at SolarCon was, to have the finger pointed at us and said, we're making too much money. We're not making too much money. But what we aren't necessarily doing is making sure the customer understands all of the terms and conditions and assumptions and engineering and what are the variables that are involved in that, and helping the customer know where they're going to end up so that when they get there, they go, that's what I was told. That's what I was told.
Because I'm going to ask you the question, but I'll answer it for myself. To me, it's my responsibility. It's always been my responsibility.
Yes.
The question is, whose responsibility is it to train the people? Because if we're going to talk about, I think it's Valdemort was he who shall not be named. Yeah. If you're running the EPC, and you're the one employing the 1099s, or in Nevada the W-2s, right? To me, I always take first ownership on if it, I go into extreme accountability. If I've always trained my sales, like my salespeople know that not everybody can qualify for the tax credit, but not everybody gets it. What's their federal income tax like, or do they have? And I personally, I'll tell people, I'm not your CPA, but I understand it very well.
Yes.
Grab your taxes.
I'm an expert.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Let's take a look.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't qualify in the first year, but in the second you do, and this is actually, it's going to take you 3 years.
Yeah.
And I'll just explain it to them. I've always taught those things.
Yes.
But when you see this kind of, because we do get some bad experiences with homeowners in the industry, not me, not you, not SunSolar Solutions or any of the teams that I've run, but we do see it out there. Yeah. And a lot of the times, you see, guys that are, 21, 18, whatever. Yeah. They've never bought a house. They don't understand what happens in the sales process. They've never paid taxes. They don't understand the ITC. Yeah. Whose job is it? I know we both represent that education, but on those big things, because they're pointing the finger at us.
I got a simple answer for you. You want to know what it is?
Yeah.
Whose name is on the contract? All right, and if SunSolar Solutions is on the contract, it's our responsibility to make sure that our process produced a customer that we have an agreement with, that we have warranties with for 25 years, that understands the deal, that understands the terms and conditions. And to have somebody point their finger at salespeople and say, you guys are the problem, when in fact you're the one generating, hundreds of millions of dollars a year with contracts with customers that don't exactly know what's going on, and you're saying you're a victim to that, you're saying you don't have any control over that, that's just wrong. And my point was, you need to, you're a great salesperson, yes, you have to have integrity, but you also need a CEO. You need to find a CEO who knows how to run a business, who knows how to have a rigorous accountability, and is going to hold you accountable and put the guardrails up, man. I'm a lot better at not speeding when I know that there are, enforcement out there, right? So it is what it is. I would speed more if I wasn't worried about the consequences. And that's just the way it is. So I think it's incumbent on companies that have their name on the contract, that have a CEO, to put processes into place so that the customers end up knowing exactly what they've got, and then they get what they paid for. The problem is that they don't know what they're getting necessarily, or been told or misled the wrong way, and then they're not getting what they paid for. You put those two combinations together, and now we have all these, here we are in Nevada, where the state of Nevada has taken it upon themselves to deliver a good experience to their homeowners in their state. Got to be a W-2 employee. You got to do this. You can't advertise unless this. You can't market unless you do this. You can't. You got to record this. You got to videotape that. You got to do all this stuff because the state of Nevada said, well, if the CEOs aren't going to do it, then we're going to have to do it. And by the way, that's one of the reasons I like being in this market, because I know my competitors can't thrive in that environment. And I know I already have been thriving in that environment. We had moved out of Nevada for a couple of years. We moved back to Nevada when we saw those rules being put into place. We're like, man, create a level playing field. I want a level playing field. What I'm tired of is being truthful, being honest, when I'm having to compete against guys who are showing somebody, 1/3 less solar panels and telling them their bill's going to be $12 or no bill or whatever, when I'm showing somebody the right size solar system and they're going to have a $50 remaining bill. Like, I want to tell that to the customer, and I do tell that to the customer, but I don't want a bunch of guys running around that somehow aren't being held to a standard like that. That's why I moved to Nevada. That's why we're doing business together here in Nevada, because we think, anything that can be done to get the customer to a point where solar and the solar industry ends up being a good experience and in a good light in their eyes, we think is a plus. Unfortunately, we're having to be, remanded to the authorities of the state of Nevada to make that happen. That shouldn't be the case. We should do that on our own.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the things like, I with the HIS license in California, I agree with those types of things. I think that I actually think that there should be a test. I think that you should have to pass a test with questions regarding the tax credit.
We'll give that test to the CEO first.
We'll give it to him first. What's the difference between a lease and a PPA? Which states can you do these things in? How do you appropriately, how do you calculate kilowatt hours? What is a kilowatt hour?
Do you take net metering away and say, just stick a 5 kilowatt hour battery on it, you'll be fine?
Everything's
is that true? I don't know. Is that true? Did anybody do the math?
So I like the equalizers. We're coming close to... I want to talk a little bit about SunSolar Solutions, the markets that we're in, my decision to partner with SunSolar Solutions. So obviously I moved away from a former partner. Nothing bad to say about those guys. I think it's a big ship that everybody in the industry right now. Not everybody, but a lot of people in the industry right now are going through troubles that are caused. I don't think anybody wants the industry to be exactly where it is, but we're all just like we talked about before the show started.
Incoming.
Life gets lifey, and bombs come and missiles come from every direction, from banking and government and all these things, and some of the the larger companies are. So I wanted to personally be on a speed bike. I mean, we've talked a lot about, you talk about being in a fast car a lot over your career. I now think we need to be on a fast motorcycle. And so
nimble.
I like to be nimble. And so, I moved towards SunSolar Solutions. I worked with John Murphy in Arcadia for 4 years. I've been in the industry for 8. And I'd always heard of you and Val, and you and I have become acquaintances over the last 4 or 5 years, and I'd always heard great things about Val. What was attractive to me in my salespeople is we are very homeowner orientated. My sales process that I teach all of my people, is that we go through a qualifying, we introduce who we are as humans, like this, I'm the person you're going to be dealing with. I understand this is your home. I'm going to take care of it. And then it's very important for us to introduce the company that we're working with and how long they've been in business, what their debt looks like, what their longevity looks like, how many customers that they've installed, and what their installation process is. And so, there's a lot to choose from. Well, not a lot. There's a few to choose from in the Nevada market that are even worth considering, in my opinion. Not to say anything bad about anybody. But, you were my first call and really one of my only choices. And it was based on, I knew what I would get with SunSolar Solutions was a quality homeowner experience. And I see a sales team as, it's very holistic. It has an emotional, a mental, a physical, and a financial aspect to it as a whole. Meaning, if one of those things breaks down, if we have a great sales team and we're installing 40 or 50 deals a month and everything's running smooth, and then a few months down the line, every single team member that's closing deals is getting calls from homeowners and saying, my install sucks, it's terrible. Well, over a period of time, that's attrition on the salesperson, and they stop believing in the product. And then pretty soon I'm sitting in front of Michael and I'm like, yeah, you should.
And their phone rings and they're scared.
You should really buy this because you're going to have a terrible experience. And they start to sell less. And then what do they do? Then they start to recruit less because they're like, well, I don't know if I want to bring other guys into this bad. Or you can have bad leadership problems, right? So when I say holistic, there's a lot of areas that make a sales team whole and give good culture, and it revolves around good leadership. It revolves around good installation process, and it revolves around good homeowner experiences, right? And those things make a sales team holistically whole and healthy. And that's what's important to me and my people. So we had to get behind a company that we believe in their sales processes. So that's why I choose SunSolar Solutions. But I'd like to talk about SunSolar, we're in Nevada, we're in Texas, we're in Florida. What has your experience been like working, and Val is, obviously, everybody knows Mike, right? And everybody knows, we just opened the podcast with, Mike's knocked XYZ doors this week and sold a deal, like, boom, in your face, bitch. Like, Mike sells shit, right? Val, on the other hand, this guy is in another country right now, and I'm calling him, and I'm not even thinking of it. And he's talking, and I'm like, well, have a good day. And he goes, well, I'm in Romania. It's 2 a.m. And I'm like, what are you doing working? He's I work all. I don't even know, and there's this picture of him on his bed from his wife on Instagram with his, his laptop.
On
he's
vacation.
Passed out, right? Like the work ethic from everybody that's involved in SunSolar Solutions and the installation processes has been bar none to me. I have not seen you guys. It's like, Val is like, I know you work. I know, we're door knockers at the heart, and we'll sell deals. We do things. Val's like in the pit, man. But between the installation processes, and he's, what I've learned is that Val's a stickler. Like, if it says there has to be this eye has to have a dot, and
which can be annoying to a salesperson who likes to shoot from the hip a little bit and move fast. It can be annoying.
Is it going to be done right?
That's the point.
It is. And next year, is it going to be in business?
Yeah. And what's the value to it being done right? Yeah.
Well, the homeowner. It's the homeowner experience.
Him talking to you at 2 a.m. I think we owe that to you. So I while that might be impressive, I would just say I kind of expect that. What's impressive to me is that Val was also communicating with homeowners at that same moment. So you got people say, Mike, the 22 kilowatt 2 battery cell I had on Wednesday, the guy said, Mike, I had 4 or 5 companies over here. By the way, I rang that bell. I'm training a setter in Yuma. I'm in Yuma office. I ring that bell, and he says, oh, you know what? I got a proposal from you guys, and I'm going to look at it this weekend. I'm going solar, and I pull up the amps, and I look, boom. Yeah, that wasn't from us. It must be from another Sun something, Solar something, some other Solar something. It wasn't us, but I tell you what I'm going to do. And I'm talking to the Ring doorbell. Ring, the, knock, 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 ring, 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 knock, knock, knock. Hey! I'm like, hey, Carlos. And he goes, yeah. Hey, it's Mike O'Donnell, SunSolar. And he says, oh, yeah, I'm going to look at that proposal. I go, okay, that's not from us. But I'm going to get one over here. Is tonight good or is tomorrow better? No, tonight's no good. Okay, so tomorrow's better. All right, we'll see you tomorrow, 2 o'clock. We'll be here. He opens up the door. He goes, Mike, I checked you guys out. And not only that, I talked to a buddy who had solar, and he has it with you. And I've never had anybody kind of give me the pitch on something they bought the way that guy gave me the pitch. And then I looked up your reviews, 4.9 stars on this, 4.2 stars, 4.8 stars, Better Business Bureau, as high as you can get. And he goes, I looked at all of that stuff, but it was your customer telling me the experience he had and that he got what he paid for and that he's been excited. I got to tell you, I'm going to have to get humble here because, the first time I won a double Golden Door Award, sold 2.5 million watts of solar, and Sam gives me two plaques. I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass. And I'm like, I want to do that again. And so I just decide I'm going to sell 2.5 million next year. And I go and I sell 2.5 million next year. I'm just thinking, I'm just that good. I'm just that good of a sales guy. I don't realize at the time, I just didn't realize, and I spoke about this at the first SolarCon, that for the first 2 or 3 years I was doing this, I didn't realize that I was the beneficiary of a Ferrari race car that goes 250 miles an hour around this track. That's how I sold 2.5 million watts of solar. Like I would have sold I'm good at selling solar, but there's a lot of guys who are good at solar, and the guys that are good at selling solar sell 800 kilowatts or maybe 1 million watts of solar. Nobody's selling 2.5. I'm not that good. Come on. And the humility was like, I didn't understand that nobody was out there having the same experience that I was until we became an installer and I start talking to all these other people and they're explaining the experience they've had and how they've been with 6 companies in 6 years and haven't been paid a bunch of times and have a bunch of customers who hate them. And I'm like, okay, I think maybe I would have had a different experience if I was dealing with that. Somehow I call it batshit lucky. I got batshit lucky, and I'm selling for, with a guy who cared about all that stuff, and it all just came out right. And I'm going faster and faster and faster instead of hitting a wall, starting over, hitting a wall, starting over, hitting a wall, starting over. Instead of that, I just keep stepping it up and stepping it up. So it's just been an absolute pleasure to have, literally thousands of customers who were singing my praise. That makes being a badass salesman, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it makes it much more likely. It makes it much more possible. And let me tell you, it makes it much more pleasurable to have. I can knock on any door that we've installed. And I do it all the time. I pull up an amps and I can see where our homeowners are, knocking on doors with guys. Well, let's go knock on this door. Hey there, SunSolar in the neighborhood. How you guys doing? How are we doing? We're doing good. Oh, you guys are awesome. We love you. Who do you know in the neighborhood? And we go knock on their doors and we talk about that conversation and stuff. I do that all the time. I'll do that with people that aren't our customers. And to have that momentum carry me forward is an experience that it's so valuable. And honestly, what we do as salespeople is we can't convey everything we know about solar. Everything that you and I have talked about, we can't get into a home and get this global, local, national, your street picture. We can't tell them everything. And that's not our job. Our job is to convey conviction. Our job is to convey confidence. I have it. I need to convey it to you. You're an expert. You know this stuff. You've looked at this. You tell me it's good for me. Dude, I'm buying it. I'm buying you. I'm buying you. And if I don't have that, I can't convey it.
That's exactly what I was going to say. There's this, Danny Pesci has this thing, and I always butcher it, but it's, the peak of my, it's essentially that, exactly what you're saying. It's really hard to have true conviction if I don't have a conviction in who I am, what I'm selling, my belief system. And you'll see this with guys, if you ask me something that I don't really know about, you can feel the conviction lack in me because I don't really know how to explain it right. But having, good leadership, a good company, good installs, I think really it's a lot easier to have that conviction. So Nevada, Texas, we're in DFW, right?
Yep.
So Las Vegas, Nevada, DFW, and then I think we're in Tampa and Orlando.
Tampa, Orlando, Florida, right?
Orlando,
and then we kind
Florida.
of blitz around in different spots.
So I think there's going to be a little consolidation. So I'm going to do a little SunSolar pitch here. I think that if, in the next couple months, if anybody out there's, getting scary or they're seeing their, companies getting wonky, and you want some great leadership, I know that anybody with SunSolar gets the MOD. They get to do the calls with SunSolar Solutions
every day.
I provide great leadership. I know you were out in Florida just knocking with some of your guys out there. Anybody wants to, everybody knows your Instagram. It'll be tagged on here. Hit either one of us up for joining up with SunSolar if there's any uncertainty with anything they're doing out there. We'd love to have good quality salespeople that sell good stuff. We don't want the wonky guys. But yeah, I just wanted to do a plug for that. I love it.
Thank you
I'm
so much,
excited
Lee.
to be here with you guys and get to know Val more and have you in the office. We're going to go out and eat some
I
sandwiches.
wish you could talk about the other 30 markets that we're in. I talk about the fact that there's sort of a race, right, to be the nationwide solar company.
Yeah.
And SunSolar is going to come in last place.
Yeah.
We've been around 10 years and we're in 4 markets, but we're just not going to open up in a market until we know we can deliver
some of those
that
guys.
level. Yeah.
Some of those guys are, we don't even need to name names.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some guys in extreme financial issues right now where we're seeing plummeting installs, teams leaving in mass.
Yeah, and people not getting paid. The biggest heartbreak I've had in the last 2 years is the dozens and dozens, maybe hundreds of salespeople, us, me and you,
I fall in that category,
that have told me about 50 grand, 80 grand, $200,000 that they did the work, they had the success, and they're not getting paid. And
for install deals.
that just breaks my heart. And
it's a shame.
for SunSolar, we had our own Sonova experience. And the money that we're behind includes the fact that every single salesperson that sold every deal that's ever worked for SunSolar has been paid every single solitary dollar on the Friday they thought it was going to be, and it was the amount they thought they were getting. I had somebody tell me that he manages his own personal pipeline and how many deals and watts and dollars per watt and what he's stated to get paid. He says, I just multiply that times 0.3 for budgeting purposes. I'm like, 0.3? What happened to the other 0.7? He goes, I don't know why. It just works out. I get 0.3. And I'm like, okay, that's a big haircut.
That's a huge
70% haircut's a big haircut. But and kind of this fine, I got to tell you, so everyone's, my optimism right now is just overflowing and bubbling.
We need it in the industry.
Well, and I'll tell you why, though. What I like to look at is what is the smart money doing, right? So the smart money has the benefit of Goldman Sachs telling them what to do. The smart money has the benefit of having the smartest minds in the world showing them the path. The people that we knock on their doors, they don't have Goldman Sachs to show them where to put the money. So I'm watching where the smart money is moving right now, and I'm on CNBC watching what's happening. And you know what? You know what's being bought up? You know what the frenzy is right now? Big money buying power plants. And that's because the big money's been told by the smart money, buy power plants. There's a consolidation going on, multi-billion dollar. We're talking $5 billion, $15 billion, $25 billion deals being done of buying up the existing power plants. So the smart money is buying up the power plants. We're going to experience a frenzy like that this year. And I just want to encourage everybody, man, just, stay focused. We've got the opportunity of a lifetime. We've got the mother of all deadlines. One of my things that I'm repeating, people repeat to me all the time, that I learned when the net metering deadline was in Phoenix in 2017. One of the benefits I had is that we went through that net metering deadline and net metering going away early, 2017, in my home, knocking market. And so we learned to do without net metering early on. But I learned when net metering was going away, that deadline, that it was like, wow, it's like I'm selling to customers that have a gun to their head, and I'm not the one holding the gun. And I'm like, wow, that's a pretty good situation to sell in.
Yeah.
And that's what we're dealing with now, guys. It's literally the mother of all deadlines. It's the opportunity of a lifetime. But find yourself a CEO. Find yourself a CEO of a company who's going to make sure that the customer gets what they paid for, gets a great experience. You want to be building a business that's going to continue to enrich you. You want to be the beneficiary of all these, first dozens and then hundreds of people that have had a 4-point something, almost 5-point star experience, all of them being soldiers in your army, referring their brothers and their sisters and their moms and the next door neighbors going. And I'd say it's once or twice a week. I mean, I still put up, great kilowatts, but a lot of it has to do with the fact my phone rings, once or twice a week. And Mike, my mom just bought a house. It needs solar. Hey, Mike, I just sold my house and got a good price on it. They loved the solar system you put on there. I loved explaining to them the house they were buying with the solar. But I'm buying a new house and it needs solar. Need you to come over, give me a quote. Is that guy giving me a hassle about the price?
You've done right when your customer can explain how solar works to their family.
That's right.
So one last plug. I want to plug MOD Academy. So for any of the listeners that, I train a certain way, you train. I love the way that you train. I train on it's a power plant. Like, get your head in the game. anybody that likes what they've heard out there in the listener world, they can get more of this. They can get action to more, Mike, than just on podcasts. They can get some one-on-one stuff with you. So I have a sales team out here itching to get.
I'm so excited about
Michael
meeting with your team.
I had to send a text and say, guys, stop moving chairs. But I want to do the Michael O'Donnell plug on the MOD Academy. So how can they, so obviously they can hit you up on Instagram. Tell us a little bit about
you can just DM me on Instagram, Michael O'Donnell Sales, and hit me up there. You can also go to the MOD Sales Academy website. You can hit us up there. Guys, it's literally just a couple of bucks a month. I don't have a $25,000 package. I don't have a $10,000 package. I don't have a $2,000 package. I don't have it's literally, I want people in there with me. I'm the one benefiting. I meet with your folks every single day, and it's a mastermind. You know who got better at selling solar this week because of the MOD Sales Academy? Me, in an epic way. Love it. I had a kid who's selling solar, a kid, I call him a kid, Caleb, man, he's selling solar in Canada. Yeah. I'm like, is there sun up in Canada? Is there enough sun for this to work? They don't have a tax credit? How the hell are you going to sell solar there? Anyway, he's putting up hat tricks every other day, blah, 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 blah. And he was the guest instructor on Wednesday. And that night, I sold solar using things that he shared in that meeting, having to do with helping a homeowner get it. And that's where the mastermind comes in. We meet every day, Monday through Friday, 8 o'clock Pacific time, 11 o'clock Eastern time. And it is a mastermind. There's always training. There's always some, the kind of that Kool-Aid, rah-rah thing you'd expect. But there's interaction between all of us that says, you know what I tried yesterday? And it works so much better than what I did yesterday. And then when I take that and use all of my information, I try that in the house or at the door. And then I come back the next day and I go, I tried that, but I put a little twist on it. Here's the word track. I mean, would you be opposed to just knowing what the numbers are?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I'm getting so much better at this. And it's not because I did this back in the day, and it's not just because I've been doing it so long I had to get good at it. It's because every single day I'm with the best and the brightest salespeople in the entire industry, taking what I told them to do, them doing it their way, and then telling me back, and go, Mike, I read in your book. So my book is called No Matter What. And it's sort of a primer to the training. It talks about my story. But the tagline is the recipe to a 7-figure income. In sales and in solar sales. So if you're looking for the recipe, I got the recipe, man. And it's not me, it's us. It's you and me meeting together and having this brainstorm, right? The idea of a mastermind, it's a brainstorm. You can't have a brainstorm by yourself.
Yeah.
And so we're doing that every day, and it's a pleasure, and it's an honor, and getting better. And then incorporating that into the SunSolar, SNSLR team and that team. It all. My coach, one of my personal coach, Coach Michael Bird, he talks about intentional convergence. People say, how the hell do you do this every day? How do you do that every day? Everything I'm doing every day all dovetails together and all works perfectly together, and it's making me better. I'm the one who is absolutely guaranteed to be shot out of a cannon every day by 9 in the morning. When I start that call at 8, do you think I feel like I've been shot out of a cannon? Frick no, man. I'm not even a morning guy. It's one of the reasons we started the call. Tim Grover, I got a chance to ask him. I said, Tim, we were both talking at an event. I said, Michael Jordan, man, he kicked our ass in whatever year that was. The Phoenix Suns lost the championship. 3 overtimes, and he shot the buzzer shot at 3 different regulation, overtime. And he beat us and got the championship. Where did the choke button? How come that guy didn't have one? You worked with him. What was it like to work with someone who didn't have a choke button? He said, oh, Mike, he has a choke button. Dude, watch his college career. Watch his early NBA career. That dude has a choke button. I go, well, dude, I've watched him play. He doesn't have the same thing we all deal with. And he said, there's only one reason for that and that's because Michael Jordan made that shot you saw at the buzzer 5,000 times in the last 90 days in the gym in the morning. And he's not a morning guy either, Mike. Are you serious about selling another 2 million watts of solar next year? Then get in the gym every morning. And that's where the MOD Sales Academy started organically from that idea of me asking one other guy, dude, I'm gonna get up every morning, let you and I jump on a Zoom and let's mastermind this thing. And that's grown into,
I love it.
Something that delivers tons of value for us.
I love it, man. I could go on forever. We got my gang out here is dying.
Let's
to
go.
get some
Deep dive.
in-person
Boot camp.
MOD,
We'll do some training.
man. So
my favorite thing in the world.
Thanks for coming on. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Yeah.
I love being at SunSolar. It's been such a great experience so far with the leadership and the training and the just.
Dude, 50
everything
years
you do.
old. We're having dinner tonight. Your 50th birthday. I can't. Dude, I started this part of my solar journey the year I turned 50.
Wow.
So to look at you at 50 and see what you have ahead of you and this team and this building and this, dude, you guys got to know this man runs a solar sales operation that comes out of this cool as hell, kind of that perfect mix of funky and cool. And it's just an environment and a culture to come be a part of this and get to be a part of it with you guys today. I can't be more excited, and to do that on your 50th birthday. But man, am I excited for you, to do the 10 years that I just went through, 50 to, I won't say the number on the other end of that. Yeah, man, you got a bright decade in front of you. I'm really looking forward to doing it with you.
Thanks, Mike. All right, gang, tune in, and anybody that needs to hit Mike up on Instagram, you know that, me as well. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you so much, Lee.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.